Hi, folks. Steve Urban here. Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by Marketing 360. My good friend JB Kellogg and his team do such a fantastic job for us and so many other companies. Marketing 360 is the number one platform for small business, and it's everything you need to grow your business. If you need marketing support, I really encourage you to contact them at marketing360.com/Riderflex, and we'll add that link to the description of this episode for easy reference. And on today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have guest Gabriel Glynn. He's the co-founder and CEO of Make You Safe. By the way, that's MAKUSAFE, makeyousafe.com. It's an award-winning safety, data, and analytics solution aimed at improving worker health, safety, and productivity while reducing incidents and mitigating workplace hazards and risk exposures. Gabe Glynn on the Riderflex podcast. I like that. I like how that sounds. Gabe Glynn. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm doing well. How are you?
That's a pretty cool name. Did that do good for you in high school?
Gabe Glynn. It was always Gabriel, right, on the forms that the teachers got. So day one, I would get Gabriel Glynn, and then a chorus of laughter. So yeah, for for a long time I hated it, but now I kind of embrace it either way, Gabe or Gabriel. So
that's good. It's a good name. So where are you at today?
I am in Ankeny, Iowa, which is a northern suburb of Des Moines, the capital city of Iowa, and I'm in my basement. And what looks like I'm sitting in an office with a nice office chair and artwork is actually, this is kind of a storage room slash weight room, gym kind of setup. I'm on a table, and if I flip this around, you would see garage lights and like the trouble lights and stuff from a garage. So anyways, it works. It's the quietest place in my house.
Now we're going to hear the footsteps from kids upstairs. How many kids you got, by the way?
I got two boys, 8 and 5. And yeah, there's a good chance we'll hear some noise in the background. I was on a call yesterday with a company, and there's probably like 6 or 7 people on the call. And they all come running down the stairs, and they're running through the house and screaming and yelling. And people were just kind of laughing about it. I think we're getting to a place now where everybody's a little bit more humanized, and it's okay. It's probably more frustrating for me than it is for the person on the other end. So,
I totally agree. It feels like that's loosening up. The entire planet's living on Zoom or whatever tool they're using to do video conference. And you're right. It feels like people are like, hey, it is what it is. Okay. Oh, my dog barked. Sorry. I'll mute myself for a second. Everybody just kind of rolls with it.
Yeah. Or you get the cat tail that, comes across the screen, the other morning I was in my kitchen, and it was early. It was before the kids were up, and I was on a Zoom call with a couple of my investors. We have a bathroom right off the kitchen, and my 8-year-old comes downstairs while I'm on the Zoom call in the middle of sharing an update with them, and bathroom door open and everything, and just going to town. And they're both laughing. I go, yeah, I know you can hear that in the background. I go, that's
pretty good.
Taking a pee this morning.
That's pretty good. Oh, that's pretty good. Well, tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself. Maybe, so where you grew up, maybe some early family life. Walk us through some personal stuff before we get into the career and the business.
Yeah, I'm an Iowan through and through. So I grew up in Eastern Iowa, went to school at University of Northern Iowa, and met my wife at the University of Northern Iowa. She was from Sioux City, Iowa. So really just kind of all Iowa. And as I was growing up in Cedar Rapids, I've got an older brother and an older sister and a younger brother. And I had a father that worked full-time as a machinist, working third shift to make ends meet. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she worked from home. And most of my childhood, she took care of people with special needs. So we always had even more people in our house, and these were people with special needs. So just kind of had a really busy household.
Your mom was a very patient person then.
She was, especially with 4 kids on top of what she was doing. So yeah.
Oof. Wow. Okay. Now, and where are you? Are you in the middle? Are you the oldest? Are you the youngest? Or
Yeah, I'm kind of the middle child. So my older sister's about a year older than me. My older brother's about 2 years older than me. He just turned 40 this year, and then my younger brother, he's like I think 3 years behind me. So
okay. Okay. And
yeah, I'm the peacemaker.
you are.
That's what they call the middle child, right? The peacemaker.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. And you're how long you been married now?
uh, 14 years. We just had our 14th anniversary in quarantine. So
You did good on that pause, Gabe. You did good. I always love it when I always love it when guys are like, "Oh, I should know the answer to that like right away."
it was an inauspicious one, right? We usually do something, fun, and actually, what we like to do is usually during that time I'm out turkey hunting. And
Hmm.
when she married me, I told her, "Hey, I've been turkey hunting with my dad since I was 12 years old." So,
All right.
she wanted to get married at this specific time, and I said, "For the rest of our lives, that will likely be during turkey season." And so we have a camper that we take out, and she would
Gotcha.
come up and stay for the week, and I'd go turkey hunting with my dad, and then we would take the kids to a small town pizzeria in a town called Elkader, Iowa. Really, just tiny little town, but they've got a little main street with a handful of bars and a pizzeria, and so we usually celebrate with a pizza and a pitcher of Bud Light.
I
So
like it, man. I like it. I like it. Now, you met her in school. Was she at a party one night and you're like you see her like, "Ooh, what's her name?" How did it happen? How'd you meet her?
So, it's actually kind of a fun story. She was in a class of mine, and I had a crush on her, but I was really shy. I wasn't very outgoing in college, and so I would come back and I would talk to my roommates, and I would be like, "Man, there's this really cute girl in class, and I someday I'm going to ask her out," and and I never did, and a few months go by, and my roommate got set up on a blind date, and so he said, "Hey, I got my blind date's coming, and if I'm getting ready or whatever, just let her in." And so a little while later, knock at the door. I open the door, and it's her,
Oh man.
and it's
Oh,
this girl that
oh,
I've been talking about, and
oh.
she looks at me and she goes, "Tim?" That was my roommate, and I go, "No, no, I'm Gabe." And she goes, "Oh, you're in one of my classes, aren't you?" And I say, "Yeah, I am." And she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." She goes, "I've seen you before." So she goes on the date with Tim, and they shut the door. And I turn around, and my other two roommates are sitting on the couch, and they go, "No, no
Oh man.
way." And I go,
Oh
"Yeah."
man.
So they're like, "All right,
Oh,
we're gonna take you out and have a good time, right? We're gonna let you forget
man.
about all this." So we went out, we had a good time doing what college people did,
Yeah.
and anyways, when we got back to the apartment, she was on the couch with him watching Cheers, reruns of Cheers,
Oh,
which
exciting date.
yeah, which turns out I find out later she's not a huge fan of Cheers. But so anyways, then of course we proceed to me and my other two roommates proceed to entertain her for the next hour with stupid things that we're doing in the kitchen and stuff
And the
like that.
vibe,
And
and
so,
you're getting the eye and the eyes and the look, and
yeah.
it's like there's something there. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So then at the end of the night, she told Tim she had a really great time, but asked if she could get my phone number because apparently she had a crush on me as well. And so
Sweet,
it was
sweet.
just it was just meant to be. So thank you, Tim, for
Thank
being
you,
the thing
Tim.
that brought my wife
Thank
and
you,
I
Tim.
together, and here we are, 14 years of marriage later.
And
So
that night was the last night you ever talked to Tim.
he wasn't super happy, but it was a first date, so
Oh, it's pretty good.
it
That's
was
a good
fun.
one. Great story, man. Great
Yeah.
story. I appreciate you
It was
sharing
meant
that.
to be, I guess.
So when you were coming out of college, did you know what you wanted to be? Did you have a plan, or were you just kind of like, I don't know, man, I'm just having a good time. When I get out of school, I'll figure it out. Talk to me about that.
I had the coolest job in college. I really did. I
Okay.
worked for Target, and my job was to catch shoplifters. And so
Oh,
I would come in jeans and a t-shirt, and I'd grab a pair of handcuffs. And we had in our office, we had a handcuff bench to detain people. And in Iowa, you can physically and lawfully detain people for
still
steal.
today? Today?
Yeah. In
Wow.
fact, some states, some of the stores actually have holding cells in them, which is kind of crazy,
That's
in more of the
wild.
dangerous areas. But
Wow. Okay.
so yeah, in college it was me and a buddy of mine who's now he's a SWAT officer for the city of Des Moines now. But he and I used to go out and have some beers, and then get up early the next morning, go into work and get all set up, and we'd spend the day catching shoplifters. And then,
Cool.
it was just a really fun job. So I thought, I wanted to kind of continue that path and kind of move up the chain in loss
Okay.
prevention. And I did that for about 5 years with Target before
Okay.
I decided that I wanted to get out of the retail world and the corporate world and find something else to do. So
Did you know what you wanted to do?
didn't my first business was actually an idea that my dad had. So I think at the time I was 20, I think I was 23, 24.
Okay.
20, 24, 25, somewhere in there. And my dad's, we were out camping one time and he goes, when I was your age, I had an idea for a business. And I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. Lay it on me, Dad. What do you got? And he goes, I always thought it would be interesting to go out and inventory all of the personal possessions that somebody has in their house. So if they ever had to make a loss claim with their insurance, they would have photos and they would have a record of everything that they owned.
Okay.
And I had the same exact look that you did, right? I just that look on your face and you're like, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? That's interesting.
Not bad.
And I told my dad, I said, that's it. I go, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do that. And he goes, yeah, right. And I go, no, I'm serious. I said, I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to try to do that.
And now he was not an entrepreneur at the time, right? He had the same job for a long time.
Yeah, he never ended up doing his own business. He was a machinist for more than 20 years, and then he became a safety manager for about the last 20 years.
So for him to hear you say, yeah, I'm going to quit my job and do a startup, he's like, well, what? Hold on a second. I was just kidding. Just kidding.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm still young and, I kind of figured whatever, he'll get, bored of that or whatever. But no, so I did. This was, I think like May. Yeah, it would have been because I remember we watched the Derby on the TV in his camper while we were up there fishing. And so that would have been what, April, I think, or early May.
Yeah. Something
and
like
then,
that.
in June, I started the company and I quit. So it was, probably 6 weeks later.
What was that company called?
Asset Protection Specialists.
Asset Protection Specialist. Okay. And you started it, probably didn't take a lot of startup capital, right? Probably not really. What was it like? You put up a website and you had a camera with a notepad and you're like, hey, I'll come into your house and take pictures and write it down.
I made every mistake in the book when it came to starting your first business. I mean, I spent so much money on just stupid. I took out a Yellow Page ad. That's how I'm now. Granted, this is 2000.
Yeah, right.
2007, 2008, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I went out and I bought all this office furniture for my home office and, all of the stuff that, I probably didn't need. What I should have done is just, get a notepad and go buy a camera or just use the, digital camera I had. But so I put myself in a hole right away.
Oh, did you put this stuff on credit cards or you had some savings?
No, I took out my 401k. I took the 10% hit, took out my 401k. Now, right. The very fortunate part of this, if you remember, 2000, what happened in 2008, right?
Right.
And
yes.
So my 10% hit actually was a 35% net gain, because everybody took a massive hit on their stock portfolios and their 401ks. And I had just pulled mine out. And
wow.
So
okay.
It worked out a little bit okay.
Yes. Yes.
Between that and then, I ran up some nice credit card debt on things too.
And then you built that business. How long did you have it and what happened?
Yeah, so I built it for a few years. We actually got to a place, one of my college instructors helped me kind of get the business off the ground. And we created kind of a turnkey like DBA business, right? That we could also license other people in other states to do, which we were able to do in a couple of different places. So we had a few asset protection specialists, companies out there. And then it was probably 2010. There was a news story that went on the local news here about our business. And this gentleman reached out to me and said, hey, I do fire restoration and damage restoration, flood and all that kind of stuff. So when there is a loss, he said, my company's the one that goes in and, does all the construction to rebuild it. And he said, I've been looking for another like value added service that I could add to my portfolio. And he goes, you guys are kind of on the front end of things. And then if something bad happens, then and we're there. He goes, it just makes sense for me to have all of it. So he bought the business from me in, I think it was 2011, 2012, to do that. So
Congratulations, your first so-called exit, right? All
it
right.
was, and it was maybe just enough to pay off the credit card debt.
All right, so you walked away with a bunch of experience, probably learned a ton, got your debt paid off, built and sold a small company. Great experience for you. I mean, that taught you probably a ton, right? Okay. So when that happened, so now you walk away free and clear on debt. Were you thinking, what am I going to do now? Or did you already have a plan?
I already had kind of something in the works because
Okay.
at that time, like 2009, 2010, social media was just coming onto the scene.
Okay.
Twitter was brand new. Facebook had just come out of being, if you remember in the early days, you had to have a college, email address to have a Facebook account.
Right.
So it was for college students only. So they just kind of opened it up to the world. And at that time, there was no privacy protections or privacy on what you say in your account.
Yeah.
And I had kind of hacked together a little piece of web software that would listen for things being said based on keywords. And I was using that for marketing asset protection. So if somebody said they bought a new house,
I see.
or things like that, and they lived it, and you could geocode it. So you could say, hey, within 50 miles of Des Moines, if somebody says, quote, bought a new house, or quote, new house, send that to my inbox. I want to see that statement.
You taught yourself how to do all this. You just like, I'm going to
Yeah,
figure this out.
it was just some really easy. I mean, there was some easy, like, web query stuff out there, and I just created a feed. At the time it was like an RSS feed, and just had that shoot me an email. And so I started, and then I would just reach out to the person and I'd say, hey, when you move, if you'd consider this, that's a really good time. You're never going to have a cleaner house, and you're never going to have all your stuff more perfectly laid out. And I was able to get a lot of business that way.
Nice.
And one of the local papers that had interviewed me about asset protection business, I had run into him at a coffee shop, and I was telling him about this feed burner thing. And so anyways, he did an article on what I was doing with that. And my phone started blowing up from companies, real estate companies, car dealerships, financial firms. I mean, you name it, like all kinds of businesses here in Des Moines started blowing up my phone and said, hey, what would it cost for us to be able to have a query set up so that we can have, these things come to our inbox? And
there you go. Bingo.
Yeah,
that's my new business.
Exactly. So in 6 weeks, I passed 3 years worth of inventory sales in 6 weeks. And I had to hire a couple of people to come on and help start setting these things up and running these queries.
What were you calling that company?
That company was called Adstringo, which is Latin for to bring together. Which, by the way, if you name a company a Latin name or any name that's really confusing, it becomes really hard for people to understand what you do. So
yeah, that there's the tip for the listeners right there. It's a good tip right there.
Yeah, it was trendy at the time, was using Latin. Now I think, what is it, like adding ly to everything now is like kind of the trend.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that was your second business. So it wasn't really planned. It just kind of happened right there. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to do this now. And you didn't really have to, I guess you just bootstrapped it, right? You didn't have to raise any cash, didn't require a lot of capital. Okay.
No, it was just a little bit of programming time was what it took, which was nice.
All right. And okay, what happened to that company? Let me guess, you sold it for an successful exit. Go ahead.
It kind of. So there was a couple of guys that owned a web development shop where these guys were doing websites and web applications. And also back in the early days of Facebook, if you remember, if you had a business page, you could actually customize it and do a lot. You could create your own applications within it where people could interact with your Facebook page. They've gotten away from all that kind of stuff. But in the early days, these two guys were doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And they had a nice little lifestyle web business. And a lot of my customers, were asking, hey, can you do a website for me too? Or can you do anything, deeper with social media sites? And so I was sending those guys a ton of business, and their customers were saying, "Hey, is there anything you can do to help me get more customers, through all this newfangled social media stuff?" And so pretty soon we started working together, like almost every day. We were together in each other's offices and collaborating on projects. And so one day, doing what good entrepreneurs do, we went out and had a beer together, and we said, "Hey, what does this thing look like if we just mash it together?" And that company was called Slash Web Studios,
Okay.
which was a much cooler brand than Adstringo and
I
much
love that.
easier to
Yeah,
explain.
absolutely. Love the
So
name. The name's very cool. And was that the URL, by the way, slash web studios?
yeah, it was, Slash Web Studios, and
Very cool. Very
had
cool name.
a big forward slash in the logo. So we decided to smash these things together, and I had a vision for growing the company and turning it from a lifestyle business into more of a larger operation,
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
employees and things like that. And so shortly after we mashed it together, though, the interesting thing happened was, the social media stuff just kind of exploded, and pretty soon everybody coming out of college started their own social media marketing company. And so
Sure.
at one point, we were the only people in town doing it, and within probably 12 to 18 months, there was like 100 businesses that were social media businesses. So um, we decided to jettison that side of the business and just outsource that to other people. And this was like 2000, I want to say 2012.
Okay.
And the iPhone was recently out. Mobile phones, smartphones were just really kind of starting to get major adoption. And so we hired a couple of guys that were really good at mobile web development and decided, hey, this is going to be the future. Everything's going to go mobile. Websites are going to go mobile. Companies are going to want their own applications. And it was a really good bet for us. We ended up growing the company pretty rapidly and hired about 15 people by doing that.
Really?
So,
Really?
yeah.
Okay. And what was the biggest year in revenue for that company?
At the end, we were doing between about $1.5 million in annual revenue. So, I mean, not bad from a lifestyle business to
Right.
that, and we did that growth in probably about 24 months, which was pretty cool.
Very cool. So
So,
you were a co-founder, and like you headed up marketing, I guess, there, or whatever they called you. But
yep, yep. I was at the time. I was the chief marketing officer.
well, when it's that
So
small, you kind of do whatever you need to do, right?
exactly. Yeah, whatever hat you need to put on that day. So
And did you guys sell it or you closed it? Walk me through the transition there.
yeah, so that one we sold. We sold that to a company in 2015 that was a larger custom software company.
Okay.
They were here in Des Moines. We had known about them, and knew a lot of the people there. The neat thing about especially that time in business was, there was enough work for everybody. I mean, we were at capacity and we were turning projects down, and just about everybody in town was kind of in the same boat. And so, if the other thing that was challenging was finding web development talent. That was one of the most sought
Mm,
after skills at the time.
mm,
So if you wanted to grow, you were either going to have to acquire, or be acquired. And it,
mm.
it just so happened that we were in a good position to be picked up by this company, and it made a lot of sense for what we wanted to do from a growth strategy too for our customers. So
Now, when that happened, was that a little bit bigger payout than the first time you sold the company? Did you
mhm.
actually make a little money on this one?
I did. Yeah, it was a good deal for everybody involved. I mean, it was a good deal for our customers, for our employees, for me and the business partner. It was also a good deal for the company that was buying us. I mean, we had some milestones we needed to hit. We were bringing a good chunk of business, recurring business over to that company, and culturally, it was a fantastic fit. I mean, they were a lot of fun. Their guys like to do just crazy projects like sending a weather balloon up into space with a camera on it, and shooting the curvature of the edge of the earth and tracking it with ham radio. That was a weekend hack project for them.
Very cool.
So
Very, very cool.
things like that. It just culturally, it was a really good fit, and they were really good people. So
Now, same thing though. Now you find yourself in a situation where you're thinking, okay, that was great. Learned a bunch. Did another, went through another transaction. Tons of learning pieces in there. But you're right back to, what do I do now?
yeah, that was a that was a little different of a I had in the past, everything kind of just weaved its way into the other one. And this one was kind of a I don't know, just a moment of revelation that where I thrive is in the creation of things, right?
Okay.
And I really loved the company that we sold to and the people, and I got to work on some really fun marketing projects and things like that. But I was kind of missing that the thrill of the challenge of bringing something from the ground up. Um,
You mean the entrepreneurial bug, the bug that's in the gut, and it just kind of it's in there. It's just in there all the time.
It is. Yeah. And anybody that's had kids I kind of liken it to having a child, right? You have the first child and you go through that like year of like all of the, zero sleep and all of the crying and the bottles and the diapers and
Yeah.
you go, man, you're a couple months in and you're like, we're never going to do that again. Like, we're not going to be that crazy. And then, like a year goes by and you're like, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should have another kid. And you have it and you go, oh, that's right, that's why we said we'd never do that again, because it's hard and it's it's lack of
Very,
sleep and it's
very,
mentally draining.
yes, all of it. Very similar. Wow. Yeah. Great
Yeah.
comparison for sure.
So
Oh,
yeah,
but
that's kind of what happened. Was I forgot just the challenge of what it means to go start a new venture. So
and how did you come up with Make You Safe? Let's walk me into this transition, how it started, and kind of a nice overview of where it stands today. Give us the whole thing.
yeah, it is totally different, right? We so Make You Safe. We've developed a piece of hardware technology. It's a wearable device. Got one here. So it's an armband. This piece of technology holds a lot of sensors in it, and I'll
Okay.
talk a little bit about those. But it goes into an elastic armband that goes on the upper arm of a worker.
Okay.
And really where the idea came from was my dad being a machinist for more than 20 years, I spent a lot of time around the industrial environment. And then he became a safety manager for about 20 years now. He's been a safety manager. And, just hearing the stories and the challenges and the things that they face and that their workers face. Now, he's responsible for I think almost 2,000 people now at his facility that he's responsible for making sure go home at the end of the day.
Mm.
And so as I would hear the stories of the things that they would have to do from a compliance and OSHA compliance standpoint and safety, um, I started doing some research to find out like just how bad it is, the problem of accidents and injuries and fatalities in workplaces. And in my research, I was heartbroken to hear that more than 1,000 people every single day lose their life in a workplace accident. Every day,
Is that globally,
globally.
worldwide?
Yep.
Wow,
About
man.
500
Wow.
people a minute are injured on the job. Now, obviously, a range of injuries, right? Not all of those are serious injuries, but
Wow.
it's a lot.
Wow.
And I felt like, oftentimes accidents, there's precursors, right? There's leading indicators. There's things that are telling us that this is going to happen. There's the crack that 100 people trip over, and then the 101st person trips over it and they fall and they break their wrist, or they fall and even worse, they hit their head and they get brain damage, right? And
Mm.
there was 100 times telling you this is going to happen, right? And so the idea was, if we could gather data on a variety of things like environmental conditions, what's happening in the environment around the worker, and human motion and things like that. Could we do what meteorologists do today, in that they can forecast risk, right? They forecast risk in the weather. When's the weather going to be bad? And you probably remember when we were younger, right? The tornado siren would go off and you'd look out your window and there's a freaking tornado right there, right? You get like a
Yeah.
minute to get in your basement. It wasn't like all of this early warning stuff, but
That's
because
right.
of data and machine learning and the science now, it'll be Monday afternoon and the weatherman's like, hey, if you got plans on Friday afternoon, watch out. It's, we're expecting some bad weather, right? They're
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
far
Hmm.
out. And we said, why can't we do the same thing with worker risk, right? What are these magic confluences of
Great idea.
factors
Great idea.
that accelerate risk and accelerate fatigue in a worker, and that fatigue leads to risk. And if we're gathering all of this data, we should be able to see the early inflection points where that heightened risk is starting to happen, and then we can intervene before something happens.
How are you thinking about this over time? Like while you're on a jog, while you're having coffee? How long does it take you to develop this in your head? This vision is this. I'm guessing this is not overnight. I'm guessing this is conversations with your dad and your talk that whole piece. How much time did this take?
Yeah, it it was a couple of months. First it was just kind of forming this hypothesis, and then it was getting validation. And what's interesting is I can't remember if it was like a Tim Ferriss book or something like that. One of those I read along the line that said, if you want to validate an idea, share an idea with a few trusted people and see if they share it. See if they talk about it.
See,
Because if they're excited about it, then
you might have something.
yeah, and they're excited enough to share that with somebody else. And so I shared it with a few folks that I knew in manufacturing, and then pretty soon I get an email from somebody else that says, hey, I own a factory here in Northeast Iowa. If this is something that you put together, let me know. I'm interested in it.
Boom, there you go.
And I was
Confirmation.
like, yeah, I'm like, wow,
Uh,
we're definitely onto something. So this is early, 2016. I had left the software company in the fall of 2015. So I was there for about a year
okay.
while we transitioned people. Um, and so it was just it was a really good time for me to explore something. And my co-founder who helped me start the company was somebody, his name's Mark Frederick, a wonderful guy, but it was somebody I'd only known for like 6 months. I had no lifetime hit. We weren't friends from childhood or anything like that. I met him doing a weekend hackathon on IoT stuff,
Okay.
and I just found him to be like a wonderful human being and somebody that was fascinating and brilliant, and just absolutely brilliant in the way that he understood technology and approached things. And having zero hardware background myself, right? Like
Right.
I've never created a physical product, right? Everything I've done is just, pecking on a keyboard. So I called up Mark and I said, hey, there's a problem in this world that I think data can solve or make a huge impact on. Do you want to hear me out? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we had a beer and I shared with him the research, and he said, Gabe, I love it. He goes, I'm not going to leave my career, but I'll help you,
Right. Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to quit my job yet, but yeah, this sounds cool.
Exactly. And so that's how I brought him along to
Okay.
be able to
Okay.
kind of join the journey. So
And then, so did it take capital? Did you have to raise cash or no to get it started? Or did you just bootstrap it with your own cash?
in the beginning, we paid with our own cash to get it started, and
Okay.
thank goodness that I was so ignorant about what this whole process would take to get a hardware physical product company off the ground. Because I'll be honest with you, right? I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a risk taker, but most of us are also calculated risk takers, right? Like we sit down and we map out like the pros and the cons, or what skills you have or what you don't have and where the gaps are.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if I would have known, that it was going to take $10 million in venture capital, that it was
Oh,
going to take an international supply chain, that we would have to set up a manufacturing operation in Penang, Malaysia, that we would have to operate with a team of people across the country virtually, all of these things, patenting a product, and all of these things that we've had to accomplish over the last 4 years.
yeah.
I would have laid out this list and I would have been like, there's no, I'm far from the right person to do this, right? I have the passion, I have the drive, I love this idea, I think we can help people, but I don't have the skills to do it. So I'm really very fortunate that I didn't do that kind of knowledge-based calculation. So
And now the other two companies too, you never had to really raise cash. You never had to deal with VC. So this would be your first experience, going to people saying, "Hey man, I need you to write me a check."
yeah, exactly. I think the first checks were kind of easy because it was a little bit of that friends and family round, right? It was people
Okay.
that I knew, people that One gentleman owns a couple of factories, one here in Iowa, one in Italy, and he just, he understood what we were doing, and he said, "Hey, if you need some cash, I can help you out with this." And so again, like the first ones, and it wasn't a lot of money. The first round of capital we raised was $100,000, which
Okay.
uh, to me, $100,000 is a lot of money. But when you're talking in the scheme of capital raising, right?
Right.
People look at
Right.
that and they go, "That's cute, good job," So, but getting that first $100,000, I remember meeting up with Mark, and of course, Mark's still working full time. And
And you
I
guys are
meet
like,
up
yeah,
with,
yeah, yeah, yes.
yeah, oh yeah, we're high fiving in the parking lot.
Somebody believes in us. We got $100,000 investment. Yeah, awesome.
Exactly. And we were off to the
Uh,
races, and we were
so
really
good.
stoked. Yeah, it's just the capital raising side of things was just a whole new fascinating thing to
How
learn.
much? How much have you had to raise to date? If you can, you share that or no?
Yeah, we've raised about $10 million now to
Okay.
date. So
Okay.
um,
Are you and your co-founder still? Are you guys still in control? Did you have to give up control yet? What's that look like?
well, you always give up a little something, right? When you
Yeah,
bring
yeah. I
people
mean,
on, and
if somebody's giving you $10 million, they're going to want something.
exactly. It's been good though. We've raised it incrementally, right? And so we've been able to achieve some milestones that get our investors encouraged and
Okay.
excited
Okay.
about
Great.
our progress, right? So, one thing about hardware is there's a lot of capital investment up front before you can even really make money, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking
Yeah.
$500,000 in tooling. You're talking
Mm,
just the
mm,
R and
mm.
D and the engineering
Yeah.
and the trial and error, and so it takes a lot of faith. And I think the reason we were able to raise capital is because people really believe in our mission. What we're trying to do is we want to make sure that guys like my dad go home to their family at the end of the day, and too many people don't. We lose one a week here in Iowa in a
I mean,
workplace accident.
the
So
math you gave me earlier is 360,000 deaths a year.
yeah, more than
Uh,
1 million people have died since we started this project, right? And
Wow,
that's a lot.
wow, wow. So
That's
it's not only does it save lives, which is the most important part, but it protects the companies from lawsuits and downtime and all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, it's probably, I
yeah.
don't know. Well, it's never an easy sell, right? Nothing's an easy sell, but when you're pitching this, they're probably thinking, "Wow, okay, this is sounds like a great investment." Walk us through the business model. So, if I'm a factory owner, what's your business model? Are you selling them? Is it by user? Is it by device? Do they pay a monthly fee for it to be monitored? If you don't mind sharing the model.
No, not at all. You know, the hardware gets all the attention because that's the sexy and cool thing. But really,
Yeah.
our magic is, the software platform that crunches all the numbers and looks at
Okay.
everything and provides, actionable steps for safety and operations people to take when we identify trends. So, the hardware is the least part of the solution. So we just sell it as a solution as a service, or system as a service, if you will. So
Okay.
there's the data side of it. We've got a data platform to serve up just raw data through APIs. We have what we call Make You Smart, which just a little funny side note. Make You Safe, right? MAKU.
Uh-huh.
Actually, Maku, MAKU, is Hawaiian for risk.
I
So
see.
we put a line over the A and pronounce it "make you safe," giving the A the long sound, but it's actually kind of a play on words of mock you, trying to reduce risk, right?
I
So
got
our
you.
our backend platform, Make You Smart, that does all the number crunching and stuff, also is a tool for folks like my father to be able to manage their day-to-day activities, identifying hazards, documenting their remediation, filling out accident forms, things like that. Just all of their day-to-day safety management happens within our portal, and we charge $22 per month per device.
I
So
see.
depending on how many devices, and these things have a 30 plus hour battery life. So in some situations, we're actually running two back-to-back 10-hour shifts, so covering two people back-to-back on a single device.
So 250 bucks a year per worker or something like that. Is
Yeah,
my
it's
math right?
yeah. Yep, right around
Oh,
there.
I mean, right around there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, that's if you're only covering one worker per device. A lot of places, especially the bigger facilities that we're in, they run multiple shifts. They'll run two
Okay.
tens
Okay.
with a 4 hour break, and so a lot of times we'll cover two workers back to back for that.
I mean, that sounds reasonable. If you're telling me that it's only 250 bucks roughly per person a year. I mean, and it can save me. I'm sure you have all kinds of things in your sales pitch showing them the risk and how much they can save. Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. Is this all protected, patented? I mean, who's your competition? How do you deal with all that?
Yeah, we got our patent issued, and we've actually just recently filed some new stuff. And interestingly, COVID presented some really interesting challenges to us
Mm,
in that,
mm,
so we track. Yeah, I mentioned we track a lot of things: environmental conditions, light, sound, air quality, temperature, air pressure. A lot of things about the environment immediately around the worker, right? Because if you and I are in a factory and we're working 3 feet apart, but I'm on one side of a machine and you're on the other, your environment's probably totally different than mine, right? And so
okay.
that's the
Okay.
importance of gathering this data from on the worker. Is we need that granularity. We track human motion, right? So we can detect slips, trips, falls, repetitive motions, things like that. We can track, there's a button on the front so they can talk into the device, so they can report something they see. Could be a safety risk, could be a quality issue, right? So this is a tool to communicate. And then lastly, we track location. And so we're picking up location where things are happening. We want to know where things are happening in the facility, right? So that's why the location side of it's important. Well, when COVID-19 hit, um, some of the customers that we were working with said, one of the things that they were looking for is we need to know, we're doing contract tracing. One of our workers got sick, and now we're doing interviews on who they've been working with. Do you guys have anything that could help us with these interviews, or could we digitize these interviews? And we thought about it. We thought, you know what? We already know who they've been around because we know where they were,
I
and
see.
we know who else was in that area with them because we have all this location data. We persist all that location data. So we said, hey, let's create a query where we can say, hey, Gabe just got diagnosed. I want to look back over the last 2 weeks and see all the people that he was around.
Interesting.
And all of that data was already there. It already
Wow.
existed. We didn't have to change this or do anything different. It was there. We're
How
just
about that?
applying it differently. And same with, as we talk about social distancing and people being around each other, and we said, hey, look, we can also do worker density mapping. We
How
know
about that?
we
How
have a
about that?
schematic of the building. We know who's all in what areas. We can see what
Okay.
areas have a higher concentration of workers that can help them then target, hey, this area has a very high concentration of workers. Let's look at what social distancing practices we want to put in place, or let's look at making sure we're cleaning these areas,
Mm, mm.
maybe more so than we would anywhere else in the facility, because this is where most of the people are. So
Wow.
where it presented some challenges to us just logistically in getting our product out there into the world, because we had a lot of factories that were closed or had no visitor vendor policies. It also opened up this huge opportunity for us to be able to say, hey, when you're ready to get back to work, we're ready to help you get back to work safely by providing you this information that you're looking for.
Great,
So
great, great job in pivoting based on what you're up against and what's happening in the world. I mean, awesome, awesome job.
thank you.
Really,
Yeah.
your vision around that is really, really great. Just and but I mean, you're a visionary. Obviously, this is the third company you've started. I think if I kept up with it, so great job in that.
Sure.
Today,
Well,
the company has how many employees? And then can you share with us? I know it's a private company, but give us some idea of how big it is revenue wise, or maybe I don't. What do you want to share there in company size?
yeah, so we're at about 14 people right now, but we actually have a handful of job offers that we put out this week. Again, with
Great.
everything happening, we're just really blessed to be in a position where, we're not cutting staff, we're not cutting back. Our investors provided us capital and said, go, go, go. Just,
Congrats.
keep doing what you guys are doing. So, we're excited to be hiring data science onto our team, technical people, Also account management, right? So people that are out there managing the relationships with the customers. So it's great to see all areas of our business growing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's really great news. By the way, did I mention Riderflex is a recruiting firm? No, we can talk.
Hey,
We can talk about
there you go.
talk about that offline.
I bet you guys are probably crazy busy right now too.
You know, we are. We actually are. Yeah, yeah, over the last 14 days, you know, like 4 new contracts came in. We're busier in the last 2 weeks than we were before COVID started. Um, and then this is the 4th year of the company. Is that right?
It is. And, you kind of asked about size and growth. And so, really our goal for 2020 has been, hey, we want to service about 100
Oh,
deployments was
okay.
kind of our strategy.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
it's interesting. We get customers in 2 ways. One, it turns out the insurance industry has a huge incentive to not have accidents, right? So we have insurance companies that pay for our product or subsidize the cost of our product
I see.
for their customers, right? To help reduce the risk of losses. So that's about half of our customers. The other half are very large, Fortune 500 self-insured companies. And those companies have, tens of thousands or over 100,000 employees, right? And they're not going to buy 100,000 devices, day one and roll it out company wide. What they're going to do, hey, we're going to put it in a few locations. We're going to run it for a period of time. We're going to get some feedback from the employees, from the leadership, from your organization, and then we're going to determine how we could scale this, and if we could. And so we said, all right, with that in mind, let's focus on really doing about 100 deployments. We can kind of be a little bit selective then on where we want to work and who we want to work with the idea being that after that first year of deploying that and providing white glove treatment, we could try to scale with some of those customers, and that would create a
Great
huge
strategy.
opportunity for us. So kind of the crawl before you walk, and walk before you run strategy. But I would say that's changed a little bit again with COVID, because some of the organizations have now said, look, we can't really take time to sit here and evaluate the importance of this or the payback of this. Our workers want to come back to work. We want to show that we value them. We want to make it as safe as possible. And we're getting the question, how many could you scale to? How many devices could you produce, and how quickly can you produce them?
That's a great question to get as an entrepreneur, is when a potential client calls and says, how much can you do?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
and then you say, as an entrepreneur, you always say, we can do whatever you want. And then you hang up the phone and you call your co-founder and go, how the hell are we going to do that?
Exactly. That's the one thing, I can't take credit. Our team has just done such a good job of, evolving the technology. A lot of these ideas have come out of our product team, my co-founder and his team. But we have some really incredibly smart people at the table, not just employees, but we have a very fantastic board of directors, some great
Excellent.
business leaders here from Central Iowa. We have great investors. Some of them are former executives at Fortune 100 companies, right? We've just got a lot of people around the table that have helped provide us a lot of really good direction. And so there's not a lot of things that really scare us when we think about what our business could be and the challenges that we could face in trying to scale it, because we just have such a great support structure around us that we know we don't have to figure all that out on our own. So
congratulations, my friends, on everything you've built so far. Really awesome story.
thank
I
you.
want to ask you just 2 more questions real quick. I know we're almost out of time. By the way, for
Sure.
the listeners, it's makeyousafe.com. That's MAKU safe, SAFE. So makeyousafe.com. I know we're almost out of time. A couple of quick questions here. If you had to just give, what's your top piece of advice? And I realize we could do an entire podcast on this, but what's your top piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs? What do you want to leave them with? A sentence or 2 real quick.
I think it's about the people, and the people that you hire. They're going to make your organization, and they're going to make the success, and they're going to look to you every single day for your mood, your temperament, and that's how they're going to operate. So if you come into work defeated, or you come into work frustrated, that's what your team's going to see, and that's how your team's going to operate. And there's days where you got to walk up with the weight of the world on your shoulder, grab the door handle to walk in, take a deep breath, smile, and walk through the door. And that's what they need to see.
Very good advice. Real quick, if you could call your 21-year-old self coming out of college, I'm guessing you're around 21 or so, coming out of college, if you could call back in time and tell that young man anything, what would you tell him real fast?
Journal, write it down.
Oh, that's a
Keep
good one.
track of it. It's
That's a
easy
good
to
one.
forget. And I've done it now later in life, but you forget so much of the early days. And Steve Jobs said the journey is the reward, right? And if you don't keep the history of that journey, then the reward won't be as rich. So
That's pretty good, buddy. Last question. If Gabe had to put his core purpose in life into a sentence, and I ask you to separate that from family just for a minute, so we'll call it your professional core purpose in life, what would that sound like?
glorify God through the gifts and abilities that he's given me. That's my purpose.
Well, you've been so successful already. I mean, congratulations on everything you've built, including surrounding yourself with awesome people, because none of it happens without the right team, just like you said, right? Congrats, my friend. Great story. Really inspirational. I love earlier, one of my best parts of your speech was when you started this thing, when you started Make You Safe, you just went with it. You had no idea how much cash it was going to take. And you didn't have a perfect plan on paper. You just started moving forward, which I always tell aspiring entrepreneurs, just start moving forward and you'll pivot and figure it out. By the way, one last comment too. I want to compliment your dad, right? Because if it wasn't for that camping trip and that very first conversation where he's like, "Hey, I got this idea where you should inventory things in people's homes," that started you on the entrepreneurial journey. And then he also was on the back end of it when you basically looked at this manufacturing thing and the safety, which is what your dad was involved with. So bottom line is, without a couple of camping trips with your dad, none of this might have happened, just so you know.
No, and if I could leave you with one little interesting tidbit here at the end, 100 years ago, last year, my great-grandfather, John Griffin, walked out of a factory to have dinner with my great-grandmother on his break. They were poor and they lived on the property of the facility. They rented a home there. He walked out of the factory, Douglas Starch Works, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the factory exploded and killed dozens and dozens of people. And so he spent the next few weeks unburying the bodies of his coworkers. And had he not left the factory, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So I almost didn't exist because of an industrial accident. So it seems a little like full circle here.
Definite. Wow. That is interesting. And now here you are running a company that keeps people safe.
That's the goal.
Gabe, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate it, man. Great story. And I look forward to meeting you in person, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah, likewise. Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.